So I wanted to, I was thinking a lot about what to do as a sermon, and I'll admit that it's been a little bit of a struggle lately because I had a little bit of a period where I was doing a lot of sermons. Um, I don't know how Unicole did this every single week for multiple years without running out of topics. I don't know. Like, um, maybe as I become more of an open channel, that'll like be easier. But at the moment, I'm just flabbergasted by um, by how it's done because I did like 3 sermons in 6 weeks and I felt exhausted. So I do want to send a shout out to Space Freckle and Lexi and Flip Top and Unicole and Unimagic and Ghosty and everyone who has been so helpful in reminding me to take care of myself. So that's just kind of a preamble. So I I was trying to think about what to talk about today, and I've been trying to refocus back on meditation practice and self-care practice. It's been a little hard working 2 jobs, and it's hard not to get lost in the grind and spiral of having to be productive all the time, feeling like you have to make money all the time. And that can sometimes cause self-care to go away, and when self-care goes by the wayside, it tends to be harder for me to meditate, and it tends to be harder for me to connect to my higher self or my something higher, and that leaves me even more depleted. And that kind of got me thinking about my spiritual journey, because I've been focusing on trying to get back to those self-care practices of meditation and reaching out to the galaxy and reaching out to source and trying to take in new information, which I've been doing, and I've been trying to listen to my higher self, and I've been practicing a lot of surrender, which is incredibly difficult, as it turns out. But as I get better about it, I sometimes get a feeling that I wished I had started this spiritual journey sooner. And this is not the best thinking. It is slightly detrimental. It is anchoring oneself to time. It is not the first thing in my life that I wish I had found out about earlier. I often wish I had discovered Unicult earlier. And these ways of thinking are in essence taking oneself out of the present moment and reaching out for a reality that we are not present in, and creating anchors of regret, which are just that. Regret are just anchors. And as I work myself out of that way of thinking, and I try not to think about that, the opposite action of that, the opposite thought pattern of that, as in Unicult, we try to work to not only understand our detrimental thoughts and break them down, but then we also work to change our detrimental thoughts into beneficial thoughts. I was just skimming through fundamentals, and I saw a lot in there about how in Unicult we work on taking our detrimental thoughts and feeling them and understanding that they're detrimental, and then we try to replace those with beneficial thoughts. And I feel like those practices have grown a lot in the last few years, where we're now doing a lot of healing of those detrimental thoughts, as well as changing them into something that's more beneficial for us. And so when I focus on regret, what happens to me is I find that the opposite, the beneficial thought, is feeling grateful for the journey that I've been on. And reminding myself that I have come a long way, and it is valuable, and it is important that everything happened just as it was supposed to happen, and every step along that way has been blessed. It dawned on me, I don't think I talk about my history here at all, and I thought that to be funny, and I sat back and thought, well, is it an ego move if I talk about myself? And then I remember that Unicole has been on there sharing their struggle, sharing their pain, sharing their journey, sharing their history for the better part of a decade. And so I think I can feel okay and comfortable in my skin enough to talk about how we progress spiritually and connect to the higher self as we become more actualized in ourselves. And my journey through the first, 20 something plus years, 30 years of my life has been a very slow march to self actualization. And so this is going also to be an exercise. This is a sermon as much for me as it is for the congregation. So I thank you for your indulgence. All right. So I'm going to do something that I don't think I'm going to regret. I don't think I'm going to regret. But I'm going to do it. So, 1, 2, 3. Look at that. Look at that. I can't point. So that is a 15-year-old person who has no concept of spirituality, who does not like going to church, who does not feel a connection to the things that are being talked about, because when they look in the world, they see a lot of people not practicing those things, and it becomes very hard then to believe in what's being taught. That is a person that does not have the connections to feel any kind of spirituality, let alone form their own and go from there, only to take in what is being handed, and they did not like what was being handed and became very shut off from it. And what I didn't know at the time is there were some very big reasons why I was not connecting to source energy, why I felt no inclination to look beyond the 3D reality that I existed in, and I did not know why I did not feel any kind of connection to anything metaphysical or anything ethereal. But as it turns out, I believe, and I think this is different for everyone, I had no fully formed identity. I did not have the correct physical manifestation for that connection yet. Part of my journey was to break that down and build that back up. I did not have the right receiver for the signals that I needed to get to connect to my higher self and to connect with something higher. I used to hate saying my old name. I still do not like saying it. It feels unnatural. I used to run from the room when my father would talk about my masculinity, or he would compare me to other guys, or he would say, "You're just like that guy." And I would run from the room upset at the comparison, because it felt so incredibly incongruent with this. It felt incongruent with this unknowing thing, with this amorphous thing hanging above my head that I had no idea about. Because I grew up in Iowa. In Iowa, we have no concept of any kind of diversity. We're nice to the point of a fault, and we are nice in a way where we hide our emotions. That's Iowa. Of course, eventually, we get here. And this is a person who has been in Unicult for 4 years plus. who is, while not having a fully formed connection with their higher self, is certainly working towards it, who has a better relationship with their family, parts of their family, who has learned the value of chosen family, and who recognizes that there is a long journey to make those connections, and also it's different for everyone. So anything I'm talking about may not be applicable to you. Maybe in a macro sense, because we're all trying to form our own identities and actualize whatever version of ourselves is out there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that exactly what I do or my journey is exactly what you do or what journey you have. Of course, we are all one, but within that all one, we all are we are connecting through a collective consciousness. That doesn't mean each strand of that consciousness is the same. Also, look, my hair is longer, and those are my old glasses. And now my hair is shorter, and my glasses are purple. Wow. Growing up, like I said, I was not, because I did not have a formed identity. I was moving in a body that did not feel like my own. I was having ideas of very normative ideas about identity and masculine identity pushed on me, and in essence trying to work with those and reject those, but not knowing where else to go from there. I don't want to be this thing, but I don't know what else to be. Like, I know, a shock to no one, I didn't play sports in high school. Oh, I wasn't doing the things that some of my parents thought I should be doing, but I didn't know what else to do. I had not cultivated my own identity, because what that actually was so foreign to me. It was not something I understood. And you don't necessarily have to be trans to be out there in the world not knowing who you're supposed to be and not knowing who you want to be, because we're given so many stereotypes and ideas about identity, and we're given examples, good examples and bad examples, and we grow up under this umbrella of the expectations of our parents, up to and including some parent just trying to form us in their own image, that, yeah, breaking out from that, we can be left with no sense of self outside of our hobbies and our friends groups. But in those quiet moments of reflecting who we are and who am I, sometimes we can be left with literally no answer. And I think I experienced, and I think sometimes the way we break out of that is to keep moving through connections with others. If we cannot connect to ourself or our higher self, or if we can't connect to whatever we have an idea of religion or deities or anything like that, we can connect to others. And I remember, and I kind of think of this as the first time, like, the magic and the power and the collective consciousness of the spirit of Uni move through me, because I was at a party and I was feeling a little like how I would be at a party, a little socially overwhelmed. And at this party, I met a trans person for the first time. First I ever met. And I think this was a divine meeting. And I say it was my first feeling that spirit of Uni in which connects all things, because coming in contact and spending the evening talking with someone who had gone through this very particular process of self-actualization and process of coming into an authentic self, it resonated with me in an incredibly profound way. Like the door got kicked in, and all of a sudden, like, oh, I didn't even know there was this room in my head. But you kicked down the door. And I think when we tap into collective consciousness and when we allow ourselves to be open to listening to others and hearing other people's stories and meeting a diverse range of people, we can have those experiences. And sometimes we may just gain a better understanding of them and increase our ability to sympathize and empathize and come together. And that's one way that we break out of the black and white spiral and us versus them thinking. But other times, when we meet people, we see ourselves in them even if we didn't realize it. Or we unlock a part of ourselves that we didn't know existed. I just didn't have the example. I didn't have even the knowledge. But then all of a sudden, the door was kicked down, and there was just like this whole blueprint. And I'm like, oh, well, it now all makes sense. And from that day, which I think was 2011, 2010, I started a very, very long process. And without getting into the particulars, it is essentially a ego death. Because I saw the potential of what I could be. When we talk about self-actualization and we're talking about realizing the potential of what we can be, realizing an authentic self. And I started that journey. It is essentially my first run through the path to joy, and it did start with cynicism and worrying about, well, am I going to be accepted? Are my friends going to accept me? It involved losing a relationship that was incredibly important to me. There was a lot of pain. There was some cynicism. And I'm not going to go through the whole path to joy right now because we don't have that much time. But those early processes in those early few years, there is, even in this excitement, there is a bit of an ego death. Because you put to bed what you had built up or what other people had built up for you, and you're asking other people to do the same. And so my friends and my family and my parents especially, I asked them to kind of go through the ego death with me and accept, like, hey, this is like my true self. Can you accept it? I would really appreciate if you did. I know I'm going through a process, and sometimes it's described as a grieving process, and I think that's okay. I know there's different thoughts about that, but as long as we come out of the other side of that, accepting and loving and caring, then that's what's most important. And coming into my own and coming into my true self and becoming the person I am now did, after a bit of hardship and after a bit of confusion and other people having to go through a cycle of letting go who they thought I was. And after I went through that cycle and came into my own, I emerged with actually much better relationships with a number of people in my life, especially my mom. We talk about things we would have never talked about before. As far as where we're at in life, our mental health. I feel comfortable sharing with her everything that's going on in my life, up to and including UNICULT. Because I feel like she made this journey with me through the great gender odyssey, and I feel like she'll support me through anything now. And what that says to me is that the more that I come into a sense of authenticity, the more that other people are willing to reciprocate that. you will get out from people what you put in. And so the more that I am authentic with myself and honest with myself and creating the reality that I want for myself, that I envision, the reality that I saw like 13 years ago, the more that I bring people into my life that are also authentic, that are working on creating their best reality, that are honest and truthful and breaking away from us versus them ideas. And that has led to friendships that are closer. Many of you watching this, those friendships. That has led to relationships with my parents that is closer. And it has led to just a level of, you can almost say, wearing a heart on a sleeve, but I have turned into an incredibly emotionally honest person and incredibly transparent about how I'm doing, sometimes to a fault. And that's fine. I would rather be that. I would rather be a mild oversharer than someone whose feelings are stuffed way down to the point where I can't get them out and I'm just silent in a corner. Now, of course, going back to the very beginning, I didn't grow up with a big religious upbringing. I mean, I went to church, I was raised Catholic, but I did not connect with it at all. And I think a reason that I didn't connect with any kind of spirituality was trying to cultivate a relationship with spirituality in a vessel that does not fit you. One that is very incongruent from your higher self, I think can be very tricky. And since I have, been through my life over the last 13 years, up to and including today, every step along the way, I can feel more secure in expressing spirituality. I can feel more secure expressing a connection to source. In my meditations, I am feeling my higher self and my something higher communicating more, and it becomes more clearer. And it is essentially, now that this physical form is closer to what I feel inside, and it's closer to what my higher self is holding up for me as a mirror, then that connection gets stronger. The equipment now to receive the signal is correct, and it is it's a great feeling. It's a self-validating feeling, because this whole process is all me. I've always said that transition is inherently a selfish act, but it is selfish in a very beautiful way, because you are focusing 100% on yourself and your state of mind and your physical state and your own well-being, and you are recultivating relationships and friendships. And at the end of all of that, and through doing all of that, I then emerge as a person who can have more secure friendships, who can have a better connection to source. I would have not have communicated with my higher self in my early 20s. I wouldn't have even known what that is. And if I did hear what that was, I probably would have thought it was ridiculous, because I still hadn't broken away from everything that was fed to me growing up. And for me, breaking away from that meant I had to overhaul the entire 3D being I am. Because it's hard enough being in the 3D reality, but it is trickier. It is a different kind of hard when you are in this reality in a form that your inner self and your higher self are telling you to break away from before you can, continue on your journey. And this goes for everyone. You don't have to be trans. You don't have to be any form of queer. You don't have to be this, that, or the other thing. I think this idea that we have to go through some kind of revision or actualization in our identity fits with everyone, because we all grow up being fed a lot of this, different types of gender dynamics, and being taught different things that are important in this world. and we're passed down trauma, and we're passed down, sometimes we take on the priorities of the people that raised us. We take on priorities, we take on traumas, we go through school, which is 12 years of trauma learning. And so this kind of process of going through ego death and rebuilding ourselves and then finding that spiritual connection, it is not specifically just that. This is just my version. But at the end of the day, the more that we cultivate our identity, and that may be something very small, as silly as it might be, sometimes it can be changing an outfit to what you feel on a whim to wear, or it can be going through a whole medical process. No matter what level we're doing to cultivate the identity that we feel intrinsically is us, the closer we then get to source. And the closer we get to source, the easier creating our best life and creating our best self gets, which strengthens the connection to source, and it becomes a loop. A loop of self-improvement, and a loop of ascension, and a loop of actualization, until we are in a place where we are experiencing near constant joy. And I have to remind myself sometimes that I did not get to choose what time these things happen for me, and I have to accept that they happened at the time that they were supposed to happen. And that's what happens for all of us. And so there is a bit of acceptance there. Trusting the universe to take you on the path when you're ready for the path is important. Just then we do the work on the path. So that's it. That's what I got. I hope this went well for y'all. I really appreciate your time. This was a little more personal than usual. And I really appreciate your time and your attention. And to those who are in the chat that I'm friends with, I appreciate your friendship and your love and your kindness, and for you all being a part of this, the current spiritual journey, the next phase of the spiritual journey.